Today I'm planning to discuss Aaron, the high priest. And before going to Aaron, uh, I have some foundational verses for our benefit. And then I will recap the previous presentation and then actually come to Aaron. And several people ask me why to study Aaron the high priest. And you are going through all these details and details and details. Is this all necessary? Give us some do's and don'ts. Tell us what to do and what not to do. Like if you tell us don't eat pork, we would stop eating pork, right? That may be fine, but when you come to New Covenant, there is no such thing as direct do's and don'ts. You progressively know what are the do's and don'ts. In fact, they're all spiritual principles. More time you spend with God, more understanding you get, more knowledge of His will you get, and you would get more right with God. And every chapter and every book of Bible is important. And from Genesis to Revelation, you should be studying aggressively. And that's how you begin to know what is the will of God. Then you can obey His will. In fact, there are few points there are 4 important points for you to grow. If you don't these 4 points, you would be there wherever you are. And first is Bible study. And second is meditation. And third is obedience. And fourth is prayer. If you neglect any of these things, 4 things, you find yourself stuck. I know some are really study Bible and they may neglect the other 3, or they may do Bible studies and meditate on what they study, but they fail to obey, but do lots of prayer. Some people neglect prayer, just do the first 3 things. Doesn't work. After 5 years, you would see that nothing works. So every 5 years, you should see some growth. That is a time where you can see the visible progress. And these things are pretty important. Just check yourself. I check myself. If I am doing all the 4 things, am I neglecting any aspect of this? So there are no direct do's and don'ts. As you do these 4 things, you begin to understand what is God's will, what is God asking you to do. So it needs the whole spiritual environment has to be changed within you, deep within you. So you have to be in that mode, in that mindset, in sync with God's word, and in sync with God through the Bible study, through meditation, through obedience, and through prayer. These are great 4 tools that keeps you in sync with God's mind, and you begin to grasp and understand God and become more like His Son. So the whole thing. And many of us in this room are way older folks. Some are 70s, 80s, and perhaps 90s. I don't know. And God makes an important point that we respect the older people. It doesn't mean that you cannot confront them. You should confront when necessary for the sake of truth, even as iron sharpens iron. But God is very serious in His instructions that all the younger folks, few of us here in this room, should remember. Let's see some foundational verses. And Leviticus 19, verse 19 to 32. Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head. The word hoary is gray hair, and honor the presence or face of the old man, and fear thy God. I am the Lord. So if you are recognizing God and you have fear of God, and you should be honoring all the old people. You should never violate line of respect or line of honor towards them. That is a commandment. This is very foundational. It's coming at the Leviticus. And God also, and the older folks have lived their life and they're struggling with the failing bodies and failing organs, their eyesight, their internal organs, their external organs were not like quite they used to be, and they're struggling and struggling to get right with God, and they have seen the life, and younger folks should never violate this principle. And here he says, all the older people, hoary head, you shall rise. Uh, he's not doing any exclusions. Any older man or older woman, you have to honor, including those that stand at the entrance of Walmart, whether known or unknown. You have to respect the age. You have to respect the older people. And God in fact goes and tells in Proverbs, the hoary head is a crown of glory if it is found in the way of righteousness. They have a crown of glory when they are walking with God and become old, and they perhaps in the fellowship among the brethren, the older folks would deserve a double respect than outsiders. So just be aware, remind ourselves of the instructions of God. And just recap the last presentation, and we went through the genealogies uh, of tribes of Israel, and I mentioned that we should be observing the patterns, try to recognize the patterns, because God is creating a construct called Israel, and He is building patterns into that. Uh, and I want to see the patterns. And we have tribes from Terah, Abraham, and Abraham's marries Sarah, and actually his original name is Abram, and then he was changed to Abraham, and Sarai was his original name, and Sarah, and then she begets Isaac. And God tells even before Isaac came into existence that his name should be named Isaac. And then Rebekah, and then Jacob. And Jacob's name is again changed to Israel. And from there, his sons, 12 sons, constitute 12 tribes of Israel. And then we have seen the Levi is not numbered in the numbering system of the 12 tribes. So Levi is taken out out of the counting. Even Joseph is gone out of counting. Instead of Joseph, his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, they are counted. So the two persons are gone out of the count, and two persons are added. So your 12 are still there. And then we discussed about Zilpah, Leah, Rachel, and Bilhah, the four women in the life of Jacob, and four women begot different children. And Rachel is the woman that he loved most, and Zilpah is also the wife, and other two are maids of these two women. So we ended up with four women and 12 children, and we have same diagram. That's what we expected. And the birthright flows from Abraham to Isaac, and from Isaac to Jacob, whose name is changed to Israel, and it goes to Rachel, and from Rachel to Joseph, and Joseph to Ephraim. So that is the double portion, and certain other privileges for the birthright. And the birthright actually has to go to Esau, but Jacob steals it, and then and through deceit, and then he gets it, and the Esau descendants are not having the birthright. Here you can see, even though God says, I loved Jacob and I hated Esau, and through the predetermined will of God, it has to go to Jacob, but Jacob has, it could have played in a multiple ways, different possibilities, but Jacob chose to get the birthright. In fact, Jacob was desperate. He was desperate for that, to get that birthright, while Esau did not value the birthright. And these two are like great patterns for us to study and learn. And when they were in Rebecca's womb, they are twins, and then Rebecca, when she was conceiving, before she gave birth, God comes and tells a very fascinating statement. Now in her womb, there are two nations. So these two children represent two nations. And then at other place, God says, I loved Jacob and hated Esau. So there are two nations, a nation called Jacob, whose name is changed to Israel, and there is another nation called Esau, which are not changed to Israel. So you have two nations, one that is hated and one that is loved. The nation that is loved is Israel, and nation that is not loved or hated is Esau. So they represented two nation types. And then let's go to Levi. So Levi's tribe is chosen, Levi and his descendants. They're all to serve with the tabernacle, in the service of tabernacle, and later they would also serve for the cities of refuge. And Levi has three sons, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, and then they have specialized role in the dismantling and putting up of the tabernacle, and also carrying the parts of tabernacle. So each of these sons are given different part of the tabernacle. And you have Kohath, this is important guy. From him, Amram would come, and from whom we have both Aaron and Moses, and Miriam, the three, Miriam being daughter. So you have Aaron and Moses, and then we have Aaron is selected as a priest. Aaron and his descendants. Levites are kind of people dedicated to tabernacle, but Aaron and his descendants are chosen to be priests. So priests are different from Levites, and Levites are different from Israel. So if we draw a circle, so this is whole house of Israel. Among them, this is Israel, and this is Levi, and then a small portion is our priests, Aaron, sons of priests. So God chooses this Israel, and we can say the whole Gentiles in the whole world is here. Out of the whole world, he chooses a small nation called Israel. In that, he chooses Levites to serve in tabernacle, and he chooses Aaron and his descendants as more specialized in service to God in his temple. So they are also called priests. So when Bible says about priests, your mind should always come to Aaron and his descendants. They are called priests. Priests are different from Levites, and Levites are different from Israelites, even though they are part of that. And the whole world, and this is also called Gentiles, are nations. So that's about this slide. And then it's interesting to study a similar chart for Judah, because Judah also goes through different things, like different sons. Here, Aaron and his four sons would begin the priesthood for the tabernacle, and they were consecrated for 7 days. And after 7 days, they resume the duties, they start the duties. And then the first two guys, Nadab and Abihu, they offer strange fire in the tabernacle. They do not follow the rules. Very first day, and the fire from heaven comes and consumes them, kills them. God kills both of them. So we are left with only two people, and then rest of the priests would come here. In Judah also, he has three sons, and two of them God kills. And the third son is very small. And then one of the son's wife is Tamar. And Tamar needs children. So she has to wait for this boy to get bigger, and then she can get children through him, as Judah promises. But he neglects, and then she kind of deceives Judah and sleeps with his father-in-law, and then you have two sons in her womb, similar to the Jacob and Esau. And the first son's hand would come out, and the nurse who is doing that, the midwife, would tie a scarlet thread to that hand, but he does not come out. He goes back, and then the other guy comes. Other guy, his name is Fares or Pires, and then the guy who came out with scarlet thread being tied goes back, and then he becomes the second one. His name is Zara. So there's a scarlet thread, which is kind of indicative of blood, crucifixion, and Jesus Christ comes from Zara. And you have down the line, there is a person called Rahab, Rahab the harlot from Jericho, and because she saves the spies and hides the spies, and she was delivered. She was not killed along with the rest of her Jericho inhabitants, and she comes and dwells outside the camp of Israel. And then one of the descendants would marry her, and we have a guy named Boaz, and Boaz marries, I think, the Ruth and Boaz. That's where the woman Rahab. So Rahab, interestingly, also ties a scarlet ribbon on her uh, place. So the spies, when they come in, they would recognize the scarlet ribbon, and they are given instructions not to destroy that household, whoever in that household with this scarlet. So the scarlet thread is right there from all through the genealogies of Jesus Christ. It's a pretty interesting. I thought I would mention about Judah. We have not discussed much about Judah, but that is also important. Then we briefly discussed about the camp layout, and we have all the tribes surrounding, and we have Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun on the east side, and Naphtali, Asher, and Dan. And God calls them armies of Judah, armies of Issachar, and armies of Zebulun. So these guys are more warrior kind of soldiers, and then they have their families along with children, wives and children. So this is a great camp, and inner layer consists of Levites, Merarites, and Gershonites, and Kohathites, and on the three sides. And on the east side, Moses and priests. Who are priests? Priests are sons of Aaron. So they are given special role equivalent to others. And then you have tabernacle. You have tabernacle's outer wall, and it has entrance. So that is another layer of protection. You have inner wall of actual tabernacle proper, and then you have two chambers. This is holy place, and holy of holies is here. There is another layer of protection, the veil, So here is the presence of God, the glory. It is called Shekinah. So Shekinah is there, and that's the whole center. This is the center where the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire by night, that is the presence of God on the right above the mercy seat. And this is the center. And Aaron, the high priest, is the only person, whoever is high priest for that year after Aaron's death, he can go into this presence and speak to God, and only on the day of atonement. He cannot, nobody can ever enter. But in the initial phases, even Moses was allowed to come near into this place, and he can take instructions from God, and commune with God. So Moses and Aaron, after Moses' departure, only Aaron, and after Aaron's departure, only his sons, and only the whoever is the high priest, only that person can go only on the day of atonement. So this is very, very private to God and God's presence. It indicates the holiness of God. Any violation, any Israelite or any Levite tries to enter in here would be decimated. The fire would come from heaven and kill them. Even the Israelites are not supposed to go. So they were kept far away from this holy presence of God, lest they be consumed. That's what God tells. Keep them all away. I want to safeguard the children of Israel also. So this is the camp, and we will come to this in future presentations, maybe a couple of presentations later. It takes lots of time for me to prepare to give the presentation on this. And Aaron, Aaron, why Aaron? That is the question. God has multiple choices, right? There are lots of people. You can choose from uh, Levites, you could choose from any other tribe to serve in the tabernacle. Why Aaron? Aaron, remember, is brother of Moses. I think this is a little bit of guesswork, but here Moses represents Jesus Christ, who is the order of Melchizedek. So he's a type and shadow. And Aaron also, somebody who is playing this high priest role, also should represent Jesus Christ. And in fact, God chooses Aaron. They're so close, so brothers, blood brothers together. And they were together with these Israelites on their journey, 90% of their journey. And then these two offices merge in Jesus Christ. Moses is kind of ruler, kind of undesignated king, but New Testament calls him as a ruler, because when he killed an Egyptian in his own time, he wanted to help and deliver Israel. And when Egyptian tried to kill an Israelite, he killed that Egyptian, buries him in sand. And then next day, there are two Israelites fighting against each other. And then Moses tries to intervene. And the Israelite, one of them, turns to Moses and asks you, who made you a king and a ruler over us? And then New Testament says God made him also a ruler. So he's kind of undesignated king. He is ruler. And then Aaron has become priest, because these two have to merge in Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, under Melchizedekian priesthood, the office of king and office of priest are combined. But here in the Old Testament times, for the physical Israel, these offices are always kept separate. A king cannot come and do the sacrifice. It will not go well. It is forbidden. So the strict separation is maintained throughout the Old Testament. Only when we come to new covenant, Melchizedekian priesthood, these two are merged. Let me share some of the patterns that I see from the last presentation. Maybe you have thought about that. If you have other patterns that you have seen, uh, you can also add that during our discussion at the end. These patterns help us to understand New Testament, New Covenant very well. And many people think that some of the patterns, when they see in book of Revelation, they thought this is the first time it is happening. But if you dig Old Testament scriptures, the patterns sometimes God has already established. Let me share some of the patterns. Election. The election concept is there way back in the Old Testament in the physical Israel. God elects Abraham, a man called Abraham, and his wife Sarah, and he also elects Isaac and Jacob and constructs Israel. And he has a choice. There are lots of nations, many nations. Out of that, he chooses Abraham. Now, Abraham did not choose to become the ancestor for the Israel. And Sarah also did not choose herself. Abraham has nothing to do with this choosing. It is God who selects a man, Abram, and changed his name to Abraham. So there is an election. The whole Israel nation, God elects and builds and constructs. It is God who decides. Same thing happens under the New Testament. And God elects and calls people for the in this age. So we do not decide. It is God who decides. So second thing, a new name is given to the people. Any bells that ring? In the book of Revelation, God gives each one of us a new name. So the new name giving is already there in the Old Testament. Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, the whole name comes, and Jacob is given a new name, Israel. So that is another pattern. And this helps us when we come to New Testament, we can go back to these and how these things have played in the shadow. Then we can understand the spiritual reality, the substance. And he also very interestingly closes the womb or sometimes opens a womb. It is God who closes or opens a womb of a mother. So the womb is strongly connected to a nation. And again, coming back to Esau and Jacob, there are two nations in her womb. He builds out of the womb a great nation called Israel, and rest of us are represented by Esau. So you have two nations by two children, yet not born, not done anything evil or good. God chooses a nation. So this is to establish a pattern. And the womb, we come to this discussion of this topic again when we come to Melchizedekian priesthood and some of the spiritual Israel. God comes interestingly connects this in fascinating way. And we already discussed Esau and Jacob represented two nations in Rebekah's womb. And God works through imperfect men and women to build Israel. Same thing happens now. We are beset with various weaknesses and sins and our own difficulties. But still, God is merciful. God is patient, and He would work with us as long as we also work with Him and we show interest and aggressiveness. So it is conditional, but your sins, small or big, are not going to prevent God from His calling. He would elect and He would work with you, and He patiently works with you to repent. And it is your responsibility also to work with Him aggressively as possible. That's where the 4 rules come: the Bible study, meditation, and obedience, and prayer. So that is you are told to do, and that is your responsibility. And God would work with you from beginning to the end. He converts you, builds you, edifies you. He gives his own nature, his holiness, his righteousness, his character, so that you are compatible with God and you can live with God forever, rest of the eternity in New Jerusalem. And if you don't like God or his word and his presence, how do you want to live rest of eternity with him? You get so bored, right? You better prepare now to like God and who he is and how he operates and what he is, what is his will, what he expects from you and me. That's very important. These few years that he has given us are determined, very deterministic, whether we would be in the kingdom or not. So do not neglect your prayers, your Bible studies, your meditations, and your perseverance to obey him. And tithes are associated with heave offering. So as a heave offering, all the children of Israel has to give that offering at the tabernacle. And instead of heave offering, these tithes are instituted. And instead of God directly receiving, he commanded Levites to receive tithes on his behalf. And Levites also tithe to priests who are sons of Aaron, so that sons of Aaron would get a tenth of a tenth from Israelites. Those are the patterns. If you happen to see other patterns, I would love to hear from you. And Aaron the high priest and his garments, Exodus 28. This is primarily Exodus 28. I would go through Aaron. And God teaches so many things just out of the garments, of the clothes that are prescribed for high priest Aaron. And why study Aaron? Aaron is a type and a shadow of a bigger high priest, that is order of Melchizedekian priesthood, that is Jesus Christ. So he's a direct shadow of Jesus Christ. That is the most important reason we study Aaron. And let me introduce this. Here is Aaron, and Aaron the high priest and his sons, and these are priests, and he is called high priest. So this is the shadow, and then you have Israel, and then also Gentiles. So this is Old Testament times. So Gentiles have nothing to do with this priest or with sons of Aaron. It is only Israel. These things matter. Gentiles are blind to the light of God. They have their own gods. They are living their vain life. But Israel is given this light, this tabernacle, this covenant, and these two are important for our discussion. Aaron the high priest and his sons. And then right hand side you have Jesus Christ the high priest, after the different order, not the Aaron, after Melchizedekian priesthood. And this is Jesus Christ. And then we have seed of Jesus, that is the priests of Melchizedekian high priest, Jesus Christ, just like we have sons of Aaron called priests. And why I chose the word seed is for a reason. Here in the Old Testament, only sons of Aaron, not the daughters of Aaron. When you come to New Testament, there is neither Jew nor Greek, neither man nor woman, neither bond nor free. They are just seed. It's a spiritual concept. And the spiritual seed of Jesus Christ constitute his priests. He makes us priests and kings because he is also king. Because we read last time, He is King of righteousness and King of Salem. He is king and also he is high priest. Both the offices are combined in him. In fact, there are three offices combined in Jesus Christ: office of king, and office of priest, and office of the prophet. And in Old Testament, usually there are three different people holding the offices. In some places, like King David was also a prophet, but never a king would be simultaneously a priest. That is forbidden. It's a forbidden rule in strict separation. And in fact, King Saul was grows impatient when he was waiting for Samuel to come, and he waits, and then just before Samuel arrives, he offers the sacrifice. And then Samuel comes and asks, like, why did you sacrifice? You are not supposed to. Oh no, people are getting impatient. I also became impatient. I wanted to please people. Doesn't work. And Samuel announces bad news. The kingdom is departed from you. And eventually Saul loses the Holy Spirit. He was anointed king, and that's a disaster. So the strict separation, and here the converging of all the offices, three important offices that happen here. And this is all spiritual. The green is spiritual, and you have spiritual Israel and spiritual Gentiles. So spiritual Gentiles now who are not called, they have nothing to do with him. Even though they might have heard him or superficially believe in him, they don't work on becoming like him. They don't have a covenantal binding with him. So they are largely out, just like here. Gentiles are out of the picture. And this is all Israel. In fact, this Israel is now composed of this group. They are same seed of Jesus and Israel as of now. But eventually, everybody would be given calling, but God works according to his election. And I have not decided, or you have not decided. It is God who decided that we are beginning to understand these things. And 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 God says, I have chosen you not because you are great. That's what he said to Israel. Not because you are strong, not because of you are a great nation, but you are a small people, and with almost like a slaves in Egypt. And I chose you, and I brought you into this land and decimated the other tribes, not because you are holy or righteous people, but because of the iniquity of these Amorites. Same thing. We are not, we don't have any righteousness of our own. It is Jesus' righteousness is given. We are trained, and we were given another promised land, that is New Jerusalem. It's all spiritual. And fascinating thing is, when we study Aaron, just keep in mind Jesus Christ. It's a fascinating things. And this is God's way of teaching. First he brings shadows, and then he brings reality. So we will also follow the same line of thought. We will study Aaron first, and then we will come to Melchizedekian priesthood. But coming to the New Testament times, it gets more complex. You don't have one Jesus here. You have another entity is almost Jesus. And this entity masquerades itself as this entity. So this entity presents itself as Jesus Christ, but it is not. A superficial look at these two entities, you will not be able to differentiate. In fact, you would fall if you are very superficial in your knowledge or in your discernment. Only people who are doing regularly studying their Bibles and meditating on them and do obedience with their whole heart and with all their strength, and fervently doing the prayer and asking for discernment, and they would see this entity. Otherwise, they can't differentiate. and most likely they fall. So some of these things would this uh, clothes, garments, which we are going to study, would directly reflect here in every aspect, and some of them would be missing here, but rest of them, this guy also would have many of these features of Aaron. So this guy mimics Jesus Christ, and this guy is represented by Satan. And Satan, Bible clearly says, Satan even comes as an angel of light. He doesn't come and tell people that he is Satan. He comes and tells people that he is Jesus, and he presents another Jesus, is almost Jesus, and his children are tares. Just like we have Jesus Christ's children as a seed of Jesus, this constitutes priests and kings and constitutes spiritual Israel. So we would see some of these features. Sometimes it is almost 80 to 90% of them are carried out here, and some of the very interesting things miss. What are those interesting things is a study, but I would point out few things, and then here it is 100% reflection of this. So this is the shadow, and this is the reality. Reality is a person standing, and you see his shadow here. How much can you learn from the shadow of a person? You can learn pretty good, but not all. So the spiritual reality, the actual person would have a lot more features, lot more things to learn than the shadow. But shadow is a good beginning to have a good glimpse and good basic sketch of the actual person, but the reality surpasses the shadow. Just like in physical reality, the person is much bigger, greater, complex than his or her shadow. The same things have work here in scriptures. Let's dwell into the Exodus 28, where God gives instructions and what these garments have to be. Exodus 28, verse 1 to 5, and take thou, this is God speaking unto Moses. God is giving instructions to Moses, and take thou unto thee Aaron thy brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, that he may minister unto me in priest's office. Even Aaron, so God is establishing priest's office, in order a priest's office, and unto which Aaron and his sons. And he even mentions the sons, even Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and Eleazar and Ithamar, Aaron's sons. So it starts with 4 people and their father, 5 people, and some call 5 as number of grace. And verse 2, and thou shalt make holy garments for Aaron thy brother, for glory and beauty. So these holy garments, which we are going to discuss, are for glory and beauty of this high priest. God spends lots of time for the clothing of high priest. Then he just mentions about his sons. His sons' garments are not that elaborate, not that grand, and they don't have that many details as the high priest. So high priest is special, far superior than the other priests. And here God tells Moses to arrange or make preparations for these holy garments for glory and beauty. If you study Aaron's clothing, the whole glory and beauty is in the physical realm, and he was studded with many beautiful stones, precious stones, and dazzling colors. And he has breastplate, he has several things, and the whole glory and whole beauty also is very physical beauty. For your physical eyes to see, it's very beautiful and grandeur. But this physical is a type and shadow of the spiritual beauty we see in Jesus Christ, the Melchizedekian priest. In fact, when Jesus appeared on earth, it was prophesied that he was not handsome person. There is no beauty in him to behold, and his beauty is 100% spiritual, nothing to do physical. And his glory was also spiritual glory. It is not physical glory. So we have to keep it in mind that the physical things here, whatever grandeur and glitter they have only limited glory. All the physical glory is a fading glory. That's what Peter says. The glory of flesh is a fading glory, but you have a permanent glory, more higher level of glory in the realm of spirit, which Jesus Christ has and which he wants to share with you and me if we abide in him. And verse 3, and thou shalt speak unto all that are wise hearted. Here it is important. This holy garments, because they are very intricate and elaborate and lots of details. So normal people, it's very hard for them in the short notice to make them. So God has to help them. So God says he does something to the people so that they can make these garments. Let's read this verse. And thou shalt speak unto all that are wise hearted, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom. So God gives a spirit of wisdom to some people in the congregation of physical Israel so that they have that skill, they develop that skill, that design and the wisdom, the understanding and the talent and skill, whatever you call, those come from God. I mean, this is an interesting statement. God says, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. So God moves these people and whoever those people, and this all happens. This is how God goes to great length to build this construct called Israel and to build this construct called Aaron the high priest. It's a construct, and the reality is Jesus Christ. And verse 4, and these are the garments which they shall make a breastplate. So all the list that he is giving, they are all part of the garments. So a breastplate and an ephod, a robe, a broidered coat, a mitre, and a girdle. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron. The holy garments, Aaron thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. So these garments are given to Aaron and also in a lesser scale to his sons so that they can minister to God. The whole purpose of these garments is to minister, to serve in the tabernacle, uh, God, the great God Yahweh. So that is the purpose of these garments, not to brag or like fancy clothing. It is for a specific holy righteous purpose. These are called holy garments for Aaron. And verse 5, and they shall take gold, blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine linen. This is a signature statement. Especially sometimes gold is dropped, but this blue, purple, scarlet, and fine linen, this is a signature statement that this occurs so many times in scriptures, both in Old Testament and New Testament. And we should track these things, this phrase, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine linen, and gold. These are like in modern times, if you tell blue and purple, people think that they are colors. They are colors, but in Old Testament times, they are also material. It's a substance. So you don't have many chemicals that could work for the color blue. They have only one particular substance called blue. So the color also synonymous for a particular substance in those days. So there is only one gold and blue and a substance called purple and substance called scarlet and then fine linen. So blue color, the blue, and purple is like some countries cultures they call violet, I think Britain calls it violet. And scarlet, scarlet is like orangish reddish. It resembles close to blood, the scarlet color. But this is also a substance. It's derived from some insects, uh, and then when they die, uh, they give this color. And then fine linen, sometimes the word fine twined linen is also used. It's like white clothing, white, pure white clothing. So these are the material that go into the garments for Aaron, and each of them have a spiritual parallel when we come to Melchizedekian priesthood. But just try to by heart these things: blue, purple, scarlet, and fine linen. This is important. This goes way, way into the future. So these are the six items God tells Moses to prepare them for Aaron. And here, Aaron did not select his garments. It comes from God. And Aaron does not make his own garments. It is Moses, who is a type of Jesus Christ, who is type of Father. It is God who provides the clothing for the priest. Important that God's work is there, is preeminent. And this is the picture of Aaron. And then we have different components. First is mitre, and this is headband. And I don't know if anybody remember Bin Laden. He has a turban like this. Most of the Afghanistan people have turbans, and it's very similar when I look at the pictures of high priest, but nothing to do with them, Bin Laden, but just is a coincidence. And then on the mitre there is a golden plate, also is there. And then you have, next item is breastplate. This is square in shape, length and breadth are equal. There are 12 stones are there. Each stone represents each tribe of Israel according to their birth. And in fact, their names are engraved on these stones, each of the tribes, 12 tribes, 12 stones. And the whole thing is put in golden sockets. And then this is a beautiful breastplate. And this is tied to his other garment. It's called ephod. And it is always touching the heart of Aaron. And then you have ephod. This is also very elaborate in its composition, and then this ephod goes all the way to top and comes bottom. And then you have a girdle. It is kind of belt. The girdle, it goes around the waist, and this is also part of girdle. And girdle and ephod are of same material. Again, going back, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine twined linen. And then have this is the robe, the actual robe he wears. And this robe is of blue color, only blue. It doesn't have the other 3 or 4 material. And then he has undergarments, tunics and breeches. And this goes here. And the blue robe has pomegranates put here, and between the pomegranates there is a golden bell. So all the bells would be there, hanging on the robe. And then broidered coat, it could refer to the robe or this one. I'm not very clear, but I've put the arrow here, but we can come back maybe next presentation. And there is another thing missing here. This breastplate is foldable at the half, someplace horizontally or vertically, I do not know. It says foldable. And then there is a hidden pocket beneath these stones. In that, inside that pocket, there are 2 stones kept, which are not visible from outside. Those two stones have very fascinating, interesting teaching behind them. They're called Urim and Thummim. So they go inside the breastplate. That's why they are not shown. And also this one, this is the incense that he takes from the altar of incense. He takes that coals and incense and takes it inside the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement. And this is the garments. And you can, I don't know if you see the feet here. He has bare feet. That is what, there is nothing given about the shoes or sandals. And he is going into the holy place and also Holy of Holies. And we have a track record in the presence of God. Moses as well as Joshua were told to take off their shoes. So since this is a holy person moving around the holy place so close to presence of God, there is nothing mentioned about these sandals. And most people would agree, and I also agree with them, that he is probably barefooted. And all his sons, while they were serving inside the tabernacle, are barefooted. And another interesting thing is on his two shoulders, there are two stones, onyx stones. On this is one stone and the second stone. On each stone, 6 tribes of children of Israel's names are written. So 6 tribal names on one side and 6 tribal names on another onyx stone. 2 onyx stones, they're engraved. Actually, you can see, you can read them. So I would imagine they are bigger stones because all the 6 names have to be fit. Here, there are probably small stones, precious stones. Only one tribe name is written on a stone, and these are bigger stones, and bigger stones are carried on his shoulder. It is balanced like evenly, 6 on one side and 6 on other side. You can see how tightly Israel is bound to this high priest. Israel, all the 12 tribes, on the breastplate. This is called breastplate of judgment, and closer to his heart. And the Israelite tribes, 12 tribes, are also on his shoulders. So he's carrying them on his shoulders, and he's also keeping them very close to his heart, so that when he goes into the Holy of Holies, in the presence of God, facing God in his presence, he not only representing himself, but all the 12 tribes of Israel. That's how the atonement is made for all children of Israel, all 12 tribes, by this great high priest. More about shoulders, more about this breastplate of judgment as we go into details. Let's continue. Exodus 28, verses 6 to 14. And they shall make the ephod of gold, blue and purple, scarlet and fine twined linen. Here our signature statement. Blue, purple, scarlet, twined linen. It's important to remember. That helps you in a long way when you study rest of the scriptures. And with cunning work, the word cunning is nothing to do with craftiness. It's Old English, 1611 King James English. It's the word, Hebrew word, denotes the design, skill, and as a designer would work with lots of care and thoughtful things. So this effort, the first the coat that comes from his shoulders down, uh, that is effort, and it shall have 2 shoulder pieces thereof joined at the 2 edges thereof, and so shall it be joined together. And the curious girdle, it is called curious. The word curious is not really curious. It has a different meaning of effort which is upon it shall be of same. So the girdle and as well as the ephod, they are of same material according to the work thereof, even of gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine twined linen. Here the word twined is introduced. The word twined is like a braiding. Some girls would braid their hair, right? Intertwisting in a beautiful way. So these are twined, fine twined linen. And God repeats, God doesn't mind repeating this phrase again and again. He somehow repeats that. Why? Perhaps he wants us to understand these signature statements. So even of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. And in fact, this is the instruction given to Moses. If you scroll for few more chapters, about 33, 37, around that, we have another narration of this when they actually follow these instructions and make the clothes and garments ready. In that chapter, they said they they make the gold and somehow make it into a fine thread, and then that golden thread is mixed with blue threads and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen. All of them are interwoven, so you cannot separate. Once the clothing is made, you can't take out gold or blue or purple or scarlet. They are all integrated, well bound to each other. uh, that's an important thing to note. And thou shalt take here the ephod and the the girdle. And then now we are coming to the stones on two shoulders of Aaron. And thou shalt take two onyx stones and grave on them names of the children of Israel, six of their names on one stone and other six names on the rest of the other stone. So six on left side, six on right side. You have 12 total count according to their birth. So it's a following an order of the tribes of Israel. And the order is important to God. Which tribe came first and which tribe is second, third, fourth, fifth. And God gives lots of attention to details. Uh, so we should also remember these details, that the order is also important. With the work of an engraver in stone, like engravings of a signet, thou shalt engrave two stones with the names of the children of Israel. Thou shalt make them to be set in ouches of gold. So the stones, two onyx stones, also land in a sockets made up of gold on the two shoulders. So they are secured in gold ouches. And verse 12, and thou shalt put the two stones upon the shoulders of the ephod, stones of memorial. These two stones are always associated with memorial. It's a memory. It's a reminder for the all the tribes of Israel. So the onyx stones, two onyx stones. Let me read the verse 12 again. And thou shalt put the two stones upon the shoulders of the ephod for stones of memorial unto the children of Israel. And Aaron shall bear their names before the Lord upon the two shoulders for a memorial. So when Aaron comes into the presence of God, he's telling that he's remembering and he is making a memorial before God for the whole 12 tribes of the children of Israel, whom he is representing. He is not representing Gentiles or nations, he is representing only Israel. Same thing happens for Jesus. He takes them on his shoulders, which we would shortly see. And verse 13, and thou shalt make ouches of gold and two chains of pure gold at the end of wreathen work shall thou make them, and fasten the wreathen chains to the ouches. So he gives lots of details, and for all these details to follow, you cannot expect a layman to do these things. You need enormous skill and enormous attention to details. So those things are provided by God through his spirit. He is giving spirit to them so that they can make them right according to these specifications. So here God is giving blueprints and specs. And what about shoulder? These two land on two shoulders of Aaron. There's an interesting thing for the shoulders when we come to New Testament. Just I am giving some patterns, some connections. There are a lot more connections than these. Please don't think that these are the only connections. And some connections I'm putting, even though other connections, I lack of time and lack of space, I may not give. But let's see what the shoulder, at strangest places this would appear. And what happens to the shoulders of Jesus Christ? On his shoulder, what is there? Let's go to Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 to 7. For unto us a child is born. This is messianic prophecy about Jesus Christ. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. So his shoulders represent government of God. So government of God rested on his shoulders. And now we see two onyx stones with 6 tribes on each, or 12 tribes are landed on his shoulder. Is there some relationship between 12 tribes and the government? And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of David, upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice. So these are very important. Judgment and justice. This is the first weightier matter of the law according to Jesus, and from henceforth forever. This is the forever government, and the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. So upon his shoulder, he will take 12 tribes of the spiritual Israel. That's what I see. But let's study further and see if it is so or not. Isaiah 22, verse 21 to 22. I will, this is uh, this is again a prophecy, and let me read it first. And I will clothe him with thy robe and strengthen him with thy girdle, and I will commit thy government into his hand, and he shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. This is New Jerusalem, and to the house of Judah, and the key of house of David will I lay upon his shoulder. So he shall open, and none shall shut, and he shall shut, and none shall open. So there is shutting and opening of the door, and government upon his shoulder. We also see government into his hand and his shoulders. And there is key of David, key of house of David, and his tying up to Jerusalem. And this is a prophecy about Jesus Christ, and on his shoulders, and he has key of David. And who will be on his shoulders would be decided by him and his father by opening and closing the door, and shall none shall open. So uh, this needs lots of our meditation. That's why I'm calling for more meditation on these scriptures, so that we make a connection and sense out of them. Let me go to next, Joshua chapter 4, verses 5 to 6. And here we studied this verse when we talked about Jericho presentation, and when children of Israel passed through River Jordan. River Jordan was at its full force. It is near flooding stage. At that time, God stops the waters of Jordan and makes a way so that children of Israel would pass through Jordan and cross over into the promised land. That is the first time they would be setting their foot in the promised land, which is a picture of entering into kingdom of God and New Jerusalem. So this has a very significant weight when we look in the New Testament scriptures. And here God commands that children of Israel take this stone on their shoulders, and each stone represented one tribe. And here, of course, it is not the high priest that is carrying, and but is one representative from each tribe should carry. And let me read this verse. And Joshua said unto them, pass over before the ark of the Lord your God in the midst of the Jordan, and take ye up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, according unto the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in the time to come, saying, what mean ye by these stones? So when the children ask what are these stones, then they would take the story back and tell them how God has stopped River Jordan, and how how they have crossed into promised land. So the glory of God is told to their children, and it's a memory, it's a memorial. And same thing God is saying, these two onyx stones are memorial for the tribes, 12 tribes of children of God. And again here the stones are carried on the shoulder. That is the connecting point, and it's a memorial for the children of Israel. So I just leave it at this time. At this point, let you study further. And that is in previous slide, just the singular shoulder. And there are plural shoulders, both shoulders, because Aaron carries these stones on both the shoulders. Let's see interesting statements about this. Isaiah 49, verse 22. Uh, Thus said, this is a prophecy about New Jerusalem. Who would be coming into the New Jerusalem? God would work with people. Thus said the Lord God, behold, I will lift up mine hand to the Gentiles. So previously Gentiles did not know him, but God would lift up his hand and his banner, and gospel would be open to them, and they will come into his kingdom. And the word Gentiles here uh, has a duality. One is referring to physical Gentiles, which have never seen the light of God, or it could be spiritual Gentiles. They also never had seen the light of God in his son Jesus Christ. Both ways it would apply. So he would and set up my standard to the people, and they shall bring thy sons. So he's talking to somebody, thy sons, and in arms, and thy daughters shall be carried upon their shoulders. So somebody is carrying them into New Jerusalem, and their sons are carried in their arms, and daughters shall be carried upon their shoulders. It's a fascinating thing. When you carry a son in your arm, where is the position of that particular son? That sun is closer to your chest, right? Closer to your heart. The same place where you have this breastplate with 12 stones representing 12 tribes of Israel. In the same way, they are at the chest of this person who is carrying, and their daughter shall be carried upon shoulders. Again, we have 12 tribes of Israel, symbolically represented by stones, precious stones. So I thought it's a great connection how the people, spiritual Israel, would be carried into New Jerusalem in the arms and on shoulders. They are carried upon. Just like Aaron carried in his closer to his heart and on his shoulders when he entered into Holy of Holies before presence of God, probably Jesus takes all of us into the presence of Father in New Jerusalem when he carries this. And there is a direct connection, one of the parables Jesus mentions. I thought this is also fascinating. Luke 15, verse 3 to 6. And he spoke this parable unto them, saying, what man of you having 100 sheep, a person has 100 sheep, and if he loses one of them, does not leave 99 in the wilderness and go after which is lost until he find it? So he is not going to leave you that easily. He is going to go extra mile, take extra work to bring you back into the fold if a person is straying out. as a genuine caring shepherd. And he says, which is lost its way. And what did he say when he came on earth? When on earth he said, I was sent only to the lost sheep of house of Israel. So a sheep that is lost, that sheep he is after, and which is lost until he find it. And when he found it, that is Jesus, when he found the lost sheep, what he will do, that sheep, when he finds that sheep, he does something. He lays it on his shoulders. Again, coming back to the onyx stones, two onyx stones, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying unto them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. So when the lost sheep repent and comes to Jesus Christ, there will be joy in heaven when one sinner repents. So this is a joyous time. And on his shoulders, he would carry that back into the fold, back into New Jerusalem, just like our Aaron would carry the children of Israel figuratively. Let's come to the next item, breastplate. And this breastplate is on his chest. It has jewels studded, and each jewel has a name of the tribe of Israel. And for the onyx stones on his shoulders, God said they are memorial for the children of Israel. For the breastplate also has names of children of Israel, but here he uses concept of judgment, whatever that means, we will see shortly. And thou shalt make the breastplate of judgment with the cunning work, that is more skillful artistic design work. After the work of ephod, thou shalt make it. Again, our signature statement: of gold, of blue, of purple, of scarlet, of fine twined linen shall thou make it. God doesn't mind repeating this signature statement. So I'm also reading that. And the girdle, sorry, the breastplate is 4 square, length equal to breadth. That's what he is saying. Verse 16. 4 square it shall be, being doubled. It's doubled in the sense it can be folded, or um, that's what I think some of the Bible teaches also. And it has doubled in the sense it has 2 layers. There is a hidden pocket inside this 4 square breastplate, we would shortly see. A span shall be the length thereof, and a span shall be the breadth thereof. The word span is Hebrew like a man's hand span. So, whatever the width of your hand, when you stretch your fingers far apart, that could be the distance, and the length and breadth are same. And thou shalt set in its settings of stones, even 4 rows of stones. So, you have 4 rows, and each row has three precious stones. On the first row shall be a sardius, a topaz, and carbuncle. That is the first row. And the second row shall be emerald, sapphire, and diamond. And third row, a ligure, agate, and amethyst. And the fourth row, a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper. And they shall be set in gold in their enclosings. Just like your onyx stones on shoulder, the precious stones went into a socket, a golden socket. So here also golden enclosings, they would go and they're secured in that socket so that they don't come out or they fall down. So they're very tightly secured to the breastplate. And the stones shall be with the names of the children of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engravings of a signet, everyone with his name, that is tribal name, shall they be according to the 12 tribes. So this is very intricate design work. And verse 22, and thou shalt make upon the breastplate chains at the end of the wreathen work of pure gold. So God gives extra details. And now he talks about the rings and how this breastplate has to be securely tied to the ephod. So it just tightly held on to the other garments. That's what it goes. I'll skip few verses and I'll read the verse 29. And Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of the judgment upon his heart. This is very important. Upon his heart, it should be very close to his heart, all the 12 tribes. And when he goes unto the holy place for a memorial before the Lord continually. So not only the shoulder tribal precious stones or memorial, even the on the chest, the breastplate also is for memorial. But breastplate has extra thing, judgment, and closer to his heart. This is somebody's artistic imagination. We don't know how exactly it was. So they put different precious stones into 4 rows, and then you have names of the tribes written probably in Hebrew. So just want to give you an idea. And where else do we find these 4 rows? Very interesting places you find. There are 12 precious stones in New Jerusalem. Her walls have 12 foundations. Each one has a precious stone. And in Ezekiel 28, Lucifer, when he was created, he also has apparently 12 stones. And I'm still researching that. I found some versions have only 9 stones in Lucifer. Others have 12 stones. But these appear at different interesting places in Bible, and perhaps tell us more about what these mean when we study. How about the breastplate of judgment? What could be the connections? Let us see, look at few things. 1 Kings 3, verses 9 to 10. Give therefore thy servant an understanding. This is Solomon praying when he opened the temple, dedicating the temple. So dedication ceremony. And then he offered 1,000 rams, I think. And then he makes this great prayer. The prayer lasts for 1 or 2 chapters. It's a long prayer, but beautiful. And this prayer is also honored by God. And he makes an interesting statement. I doubt how much Solomon actually understood what he was saying, but nevertheless, the prophecy and the signatures of God do come in these verses. Give therefore thy servant, that is Solomon, an understanding heart to judge thy people. So to judge thy people, who are thy people in this context when Solomon did the prayer? Whole children of Israel. Remember when Solomon is king, David and his son Solomon, there are no more divisions. There are no Judah and northern 10 tribes separated. They are still one unified house, children of Israel. So he is asking God a heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? So Aaron has kept these things closer to his heart, just like a heart. And the breastplate is for judgment, and heart, and thy people. You have 12 tribes of Israel, the same connection I see here. And here is adding discerning between good and bad. That is to judge the 12 tribes of Israel in justice, in judgment, in righteousness, with equity. Those that need a good heart, a heart after God. So Solomon was asking, and then God responds. And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon has asked this thing. So why judgment? Perhaps the judgment is connecting with the righteous judgment of the whole Israel. Malachi 3, verse 16 to 17. And this is a fascinating thing about jewels, the precious stones. And who are these precious stones? And in Aaron's body, both in breastplate and on his shoulders, there are physical precious stones like jewels. But Malachi takes it further. What are these jewels? Then Malachi 3, verses 16 to 17, verse 16. Then they that feared the Lord spoke often one to another, and the Lord hearkened. So when people who feared God spoke one to another, the Lord hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord and that thought upon his name. See, these are very important verses. They're teaching so many things in one verse. Those who feared God's name and who thought upon him, and their fellowship, their conversations are centered around God and praising him and talking about his holiness, not about sports, not about the worldly things. When we do this fellowship in right way, it pleases God, and he commanded that those conversations be written or recorded in a book for future generations, uh, to to hear and learn from those conversations. See, if you please, your conversations are pleasing to God, how much good comes out of it. Just keep in mind. And then this verse God ties up further, not only writing their names in the book of remembrance, but he tells something significant. And they shall be mine. So these people who feared me and thought upon my name, and they shall be mine, his own. Just like Aaron has kept these stones so closer to his heart, his own. So they shall be mine, and said the Lord of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them as a man spares his own son that serves him. We are like his sons and daughters. We are his children. We serve him in spirit and in truth, with whole of our heart and mind and our whole being. We serve him. So he calls us as his jewels. So the whole spiritual Israel comprises of these jewels, and the Melchizedekian priest, that is Jesus Christ, both breastplate as well as on his shoulders, which were again represented in a very small physical way by Aaron, the high priest. And then God adds to this breastplate a double layer, perhaps a hidden pocket where Urim and Thummim, there are two precious stones, some stones that are kept. And Exodus 28, verse 30, and thou shalt put in the breastplate of judgment, thou shalt put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be upon Aaron's heart when he goes in before the Lord. So when he goes into the Holy of Holies in the presence of the Lord, he also should keep these things along with the breastplate and the 12 tribes of Israel. He should also keep these two things, Urim and Thummim. And Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before the Lord continually. So this has deeper meaning to the judgment. And the Urim and Thummim is fascinating. Let me explain this, how they are used in scriptures. And this is again artist's imagination. We don't know how the original Urim and Thummim are originally made, but there is one black and one white. There is some distinction. This is kind of casting lots. Typically, when you have a difficult question to ask, and you do not know to decide to go left or to right, you are at the intersection, you cannot go further. So you need God's help, God's counsel. So you typically come to priest, and priest would put these stones, and he can say one for left and black for right, and he puts both of them into this, and perhaps say a prayer, and then takes out only one stone. When he puts his hand, he doesn't know which stone he is picking up, When he comes, whatever comes out, then he tells, go to the right if it is black, and go to the left if it is white. I'm kind of paraphrasing. That's how a difficult decision with yes or no answer can be brought out by these two stones. That is what God is also hinting, and we will also see in few examples how these stones were used. Numbers 27, verse 18 to 21. And the Lord said unto Moses, take thee Joshua, the son of Nun. This is when Moses' role is ending and Joshua is taking over, and Joshua would lead them into promised land. And God says, give some of your glory to Joshua and prepare him, because he has to lead this great nation, all the 12 tribes. And let me read this. And the Lord said unto Moses, take thee Joshua, the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay thine hand upon him, and set him before Eleazar the priest. So Eleazar was the priest, and before all the congregation, and give him a charge in their sight. And thou shalt put some of thine honor upon him, that all the congregation of the children of Israel may be obedient, that is, obedient to Joshua also, just like as they were obedient to Moses. And he shall stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall ask counsel. Eleazar would ask for counsel. Who would he ask? He would ask God, right? He's a priest of God. So Eleazar would ask counsel for him after the judgment of Urim before the Lord. And at his word shall they go out, and at his word they shall come in. So going out or coming in, both are decided by this Urim, implying Thummim also there, Urim and Thummim. And both he and all the children of Israel with him, even all the congregation. So the big decisions, difficult decisions are made with the help of Urim and Thummim. And Joshua used it because God is no longer, because no longer they will have pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire, and then they are left with only tabernacle. Once they are in the promised land, they are no longer in the wilderness, so they have to make those decisions. But they have God still invisible and present with them, and they have a priest who can help them to get counsel of God. And interesting verse, like Saul, he tries to get the answers from God. Let's see what happens. 1 Samuel 28, verse 6. This is King Saul. When Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. So here in this case to Joshua, God answered to Joshua by Urim. Here God did not answer by Urim, neither Urim, nor dreams, nor by prophets, because Saul was rejected. And 1 Samuel 30, verses 7 to 8, David, on the other hand, who is a type and shadow of Jesus Christ, he gets the answer. And here, let me read this. And David said to Abiathar the priest, this is a different priest, Ahimelech's son, I pray thee, and bring me hither the ephod. So when he was outside the temple, probably still tabernacle, maybe we don't know at this, I don't remember if it is tabernacle or temple, but priest was asked to bring the ephod. When he brings the ephod, he also brings the breastplate. You cannot separate breastplate from ephod. It is all tied up. So we can safely assume that breastplate. And when he brings breastplate, the hidden pocket and Urim and Thummim are also there with that. And Abiathar brought thither the ephod to David, and David inquired at the Lord, saying, shall I pursue after this troop? So he does not know that his wives and some of his children were taken away by the enemy. And at this point, at this time, is it a right thing for him to do and chase them and regain his men and women, or should he wait for some more time, or should he hold off? He was at 2 points, like he very hard and to make a decision. So here he is asking counsel of God, shall I overtake them? And he answered, he means the uh, Abiathar king, probably I'm assuming he took the Urim and Thummim and took one stone, and then he answered, uh, pursue. That is the answer he got. For thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. And if you read further, David actually pursues them and recovers everything from his enemies, because he used the Urim and Thummim to get the counsel of God. So fascinating, Urim and Thummim, and how it plays out in Melchizedekian priesthood. You can stretch your imagination, study further, and he gives counsel of his Father to us, Jesus Christ. It's a continual counsel. You don't need physical stones of Urim and Thummim. Get on your knees and pour out your heart to him, and seek him with all your heart, and with honest heart, with noble heart, with humble heart. Pour yourself, and God will give his counsel and his direction. It's a lot more easier in a way than to go to some priest and ask for Urim and Thummim. Things are made easy in a way, and things are also made difficult because you have to humble yourself before God to get his counsel. And then robe, and thou shalt make the robe of ephod all of blue. This is robe is a clothing from top to bottom for the priest. It is all blue for some reason. You don't have the signature statement. And there shall be a hole at the top, he goes on. I will just, verse 33. And beneath upon the robe, at the bottom, you have to make pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet, and round about hem thereof, bells of gold between them round about. Robe is all blue, but at the bottom, at the edge, that is hem, again the signature statement comes: blue, purple, scarlet, round about hem thereof, and bells of gold between the pomegranates. So you have pomegranates are made, embroidered, and between the pomegranates, alternatingly, you have bells. And these bells are important. They should be making sound when Aaron goes into the Holy of Holies. If bells are not heard, he would die. A golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate upon the hem of the robe round about him. And it shall be upon Aaron to minister, and his sound shall be heard when he goes into the holy before the Lord, and when he comes out, that he dies not. So if bells are not making sound, he may not come out. He may die there. And a mitre, this is like headband at the head. And thou shalt make a plate of pure gold, and grave upon it the engravings of a signet, holiness to the Lord. So Aaron has this golden plate on his head, upon the mitre, on the headband. It's a beautiful pure gold plate. On that it is written, holiness to the Lord. This is very important. Holiness to the Lord. This is a place, this is placed at the forehead, almost between the eyes. So this is frontal, the holiness to the Lord, and which is fully fulfilled in Jesus Christ. And thou shalt put it on blue lace, that it may be upon the mitre. God is very detailed, like he gives a blue lace to be tied up. You can't use any other color. It's a blue lace upon the mitre. Upon the forefront of the mitre it shall be. So front side. When he faces, you would clearly see holiness to the Lord. And when Jesus arrived, there is no such plate on his headband. but you would see the holiness in him resonating spiritually. And here, physically, something is written on a physical plate and physical letters and tied with a blue lace to the physical high priest, Aaron, and that is translated to much bigger, glorious holiness. And scripture says there is beauties of holiness in the Melchizedekian priesthood. Psalm 110, we will visit that sometime. And verse 38, it shall be upon Aaron's forehead that Aaron may bear iniquity of the holy things. Now, every artifact in his garments has some concept teaching associated. So here, this holiness to the Lord, this golden, pure golden plate has something to do, bear the iniquity of holy things with the children of Israel, shall hallow all in their holy gifts, and it shall be always upon his forehead, that they may be accepted before the Lord. So when children of Israel give offerings and holy things to God, they are imperfect people. They may violate one of the rules of offering, and they have to give a lamb or goat without blemish, without spot. It should not be a sick animal. It should not be an animal that you want to get rid of it. You want to give a best animal from your flock. There are several possibilities, but people always are not right, in right mind, right spirit, and they offer the holy things, and they would be died, they would be killed potentially. Sometimes they're spared because Aaron has this golden plate on his forehead. So he's covering up of the imperfections of the sacrifices of children of Israel. Same thing happens on this side. However good thing that you are thinking you are doing it for God, it could be contaminated with bad attitude, wrong reasons. You might be doing a right thing, and there are different shades of sin that contaminate our good works and good thoughts. We think that is a good thought and good act. There could be some shade of evil, some sin, sometimes visible, sometimes not visible to us. Sometimes it's a gray area. So you cannot offer such things as holy to God. So somebody needs to cover those things, take care of your shady things. That's what Jesus Christ covers us. He covers our holy gifts if there is any iniquity in them. And the broidered coat, and thou shalt embroider the coat of fine linen, thou shalt make mitre of fine linen, both coat as well as the mitre, both same material. Thou shalt make girdle of needlework. This needlework keeps coming back. The needlework, with needle you have to work, it always denotes a very intricate, very finer work. It takes time. It takes time for this work. It takes lots of effort. It takes lots of patience. The same thing true for us. For us to be bearing holy, righteous character of God, it takes so much time. So many finer areas of our lives have to be changed. We have to be tuned, and it is very similar to this needlework of Aaron. And for Aaron's sons, thou shalt make coats, and thou shalt make them girdles, and bonnets shalt thou make for them for glory and beauty. For even Aaron's sons would share the glory and beauty of their father. Just like we also share the glory and beauty of Jesus Christ, who is also the everlasting Father and who is also our Father in a spiritual sense. And verse 41, and thou shalt put them upon Aaron thy brother and his sons with him, and shall anoint them. Now Moses have to put all these garments on Aaron and his sons, and that is not sufficient for them to go and work in the temple. This is a significant step. In addition to the garments, Moses has to do something. He shall anoint them. Here, Moses would take the oil and put them, physical oil, on their physical heads and anoint them. But in spiritual sense, Jesus Christ would anoint us with his spirit as well as his Father's spirit, that is Holy Spirit. He shall anoint them and consecrate them. They are set apart, separate for this service, and sanctify them, make them holy, that they may minister unto me in the priest's office. This is fascinating. Just needs lots of thinking and meditation. And this is an extra thing God wants, that they have to cover their loins fully so that they don't expose their nakedness when they go into tabernacle. And thou shalt make them linen breeches to cover their nakedness from the loins even unto the thighs they shall reach, and they shall be upon Aaron and upon his sons when they come unto the tabernacle of congregation, or when they come near unto the altar to minister in the holy place, they bear not the iniquity and die. God said, I will kill them if they do not cover their nakedness. It shall be a statute forever unto him and his seed, and unto his seed after him. So all the generations of Aaron, this rule holds for them. And now Aaron is just as sinful person as any of his sons, and Aaron also needs to cover his nakedness. And this point is not there when we come to Melchizedekian priesthood, because there is no sin in him, there is no nakedness in him. He doesn't need to cover anything on himself, but he would cover our nakedness. It goes back to Garden of Eden. When Adam and Eve sinned, they suddenly found themselves naked, and they tried to cover with fig leaves. It does not work. You have to have covering of a sacrificial animal, and animal skins were given by God, representing and prophesying that one day your nakedness would be covered by the high priest of the order of Melchizedekian. And this is the pictures, various artists' imaginations. Here, Aaron in his glory and beauty. And here they put slippers. I don't know. I think it is wrong. He may not have sandals, but rest looks a little bit okay. But it's like they combined the blue, purple, and colors in a different design. Others might think in a different pattern. We don't know exactly what pattern they followed. And Aaron has different garments at different times. This is the garments when he slays the animal, when he kills it. The blood of the animal sometimes gushes out and makes his white garment splashed with blood, which we see in Book of Revelation and other places in the prophecies. Jesus' garments would be filled with blood, splashed with blood. And this is the time when he goes into Holy of Holies, special times. So this represent the whole garments we studied, always represent the time when Aaron goes into Holy of Holies. And Jesus Christ is the one who actually went into true Holy of Holies to the Father, bearing us upon his shoulders and upon his heart. And this is an important lesson. If you want to have salvation, if you want to be with Father's presence, your probability and possibility goes up by how much you are sticking to your high priest, Lord Jesus Christ. Are you on his shoulders? Are you sticking to his heart? Are you binding to him tightly with the new covenantal binding? Those are the questions we should be answering. We should be thinking about that. And this is interesting. Let me take back to one interesting. my first diagram. There's one diagram I have put. Yes, this diagram. Here you see the blue and all the colors. And then here, if you see all the colors, what their representation is there. And when you come here, if you go to Revelation, Revelation 17 and 18, Mystery Babylon, it also has several features of these colors of Aaron. But one color is missing, that is blue. So people did lots of research, like why blue is missing, what blue represents. And I have a scripture, what blue represents. Blue represents something very significant. Here, speak unto the children of Israel and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put on the fringe of their borders a ribbon. This is a ribbon of blue. So on the fringes, they have to put blue borders. That was asked for the children of Israel. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that you may look upon it. So whenever you look at the fringe of blue on your garments, and remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them, and that ye seek not after your own heart or your own eyes, after which ye used to go a whoring. So it keeps you from spiritual adultery and right standing with God whenever you see these blue fringes, and that ye may remember and do all my commandments and be holy unto you, unto your God. I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of land of Egypt to be your God, and I am the Lord your God. So God is your God as long as you are remembering the blue. And Mystery Babylon, this great whore sitting on many waters, she does not have right standing. The blue is missing, but she mimics the high priest by taking other colors, other garments. So she looks almost Jesus, but she is not quite Jesus. And Aaron has holiness to the Lord on his forehead, a pure gold plate. But this woman has abominations written on her forehead. And Aaron has in his hand a incense prayers, right standing with God when he goes into Holy of Holies. And this woman has in her hand a cup full of abominations. Just I'm giving you a few tips. You can do your own study. That's it. I want to end. I don't want to start Hebrews. We have spent enough discussion. I think I will give back control to Raymond. If you have any questions.
Okay, Tagore, what an amazing amount of detail in that subject. I had no idea how much detail there was there and how much you can put into that detail and what it means. I appreciate the effort that you took, Tagore, into going into all that. I'm sorry, Willard and Tom had to leave. Tom was just getting so sleepy. He overslept was the problem already. So he was real tired coming in. And Willard, by the way, I want to ask you guys to say a prayer for him. His neurology, let's see, how did he put that? He sent me a private text. He had to leave because his feet were burning really bad.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
He has a problem with neurology. I have that too. Mine don't burn, but mine get kind of numb. And but his were hurting him, so that's why they left early. Yeah, Bill, go ahead. And what did you have to say?
Yeah, it takes a lot to impress me, but that was very impressive, Tagore. Uh, yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. By the way, the last scripture where the woman or the where the priest has the blue. What scripture was that?
It's Numbers
You
15. I just
number?
looked that up for Rebecca. Numbers 15, verse 41, I think, or right in there somewhere.
Yeah, 38. I think I saw that. Okay, number 16. Yeah, that was very impressive.
Numbers 15.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah, you obviously did a lot of research. Uh, yeah, what I was going to add from when you started about Rahab the harlot, besides her hiding the spies, you know, she said, "I know your God is the one that's going to take over." So she apparently already knew the true God of Israel, and I thought that was interesting. Uh, and so, and then Gentiles will have the chance to have a God of Israel, just like Rahab. And that thing about the king and priest being separate, I've talked about that before. And when we go into the kingdom, you said about the king and the priest were separate in Israel. And I have my own speculation that the women are going to be the priests in the kingdom, and the men are the kings. But anyway, that's a speculation. And you know that about the stones being on their shoulders and the government on Jesus' shoulders. That was very good. 12 stones. And especially that priest wearing the white garments and getting the blood splattered on him. I mean, you did a lot of great research, Tagore. Really, really appreciate it. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm showing a screen here that had a pretty good picture of what you were describing. I thought you guys might want to see that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
That blue is so predominant on this one. And then I just noticed on this one where it says that apron-like garment on the front is the ephod. I always wondered what an ephod was, you know. And apparently the breastplate is attached to that in some manner. And it shows it pretty good in this picture, I thought. So I sent a link to that in the room if you guys want to save it. I just thought I'd show you that.
And by the way, you started out very excellently there. People, a lot of people do this. They say, you know, just tell us the do's and don'ts. They want somebody to tell them what to do and not instead of studying. And I really appreciate you saying there the 4 things: Bible study, meditation, obedience, and prayer, or you'll be stuck. That's very true because, you know, I go over here to Living and I pick my 200 people over there. I pick my, as they say, you pick your fights, but I don't get in a fight. I get into deep discussions, and there are a small percentage of those at Living that are very knowledgeable, and they will engage and discuss some of these things. And I did notice a lot of them, you know, after services, there's like an hour of snacks and stuff talking, and very few of them want to talk scriptures. You know, they want to talk about babies or ball games or, you know, but you can find the people that want to talk scriptures, and some of them are very interesting to talk with, been around a long time. But I appreciate. When did you get baptized, Tagore? You told me before.
That was long back, 1989.
89. Okay. Yeah. So after Herbert Armstrong was dead. But anyway, yeah, you do a great job. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other patterns that you see? Anybody else? I have given some patterns. Any other patterns you want to share? I would like to hear.
There was something I had in my mind I wanted to talk about, and I cannot remember it now. I may have put it up in the post. I'm looking up there and see.
Buddy raised his hand.
Historically, there's a legend or a myth, or in the Hebrew writings that these 2 stones on the shoulders, when the high priest walked around in the temple, because it was open, you know, the temple area, that 2 lights shined up to heaven from his shoulders. And that makes sense. So that, you know, people would know that he was in there walking around. but it's just a legend or a myth. But sometimes these legends and myths have truth to them in these writings. And also, there's a very interesting thing. You notice that that the stones had the names of Israel, the Israel tribes engraved on them. What did they use to engrave on a diamond? That always kind of.
Some people believe it's not real diamond. We lost the meanings of their names to a stone. So they chose diamond. We don't know what it is.
Yeah, it could be.
That's what most scholars were saying. People who did years of research on these stones, they say like they couldn't go back to the original time to map the names to a particular stone.
Right. Well,
The
diamond would have been.
probably lost.
I don't remember which name was on the diamond, but it does say engraved. And so if it were a diamond, they must have had technology that would have allowed them to do that.
Possible.
Or it was spiritual power that did it.
Yeah, spirit of wisdom. God said he gave them. So nothing is impossible, right? When God is there.
No, but that's just kind of an interesting thing. I always wondered.
Good.
But the priest, there's also some indication that those weren't stones in the epod, that they were. One researcher looked back in history and he said one of them was some type of little idol, and that could be also. Who knows, But they were binary answers, regardless, yeses and nos, when they would ask a question.
Oh, the Urim and Thummim.
Yeah, the Urim.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a binary answer.
Rebecca asked about what the cycles of 5 years regarding learning was all about. I don't know.
That's my observation. If you start all these 4 things, Bible study, meditation, and obedience and prayer, you don't see immediately next day you understand a lot more things. At least like 5 years, every multiples of 5 years, you see that your growth as a milestone. At least 5 years.
Is that a personal example, or is that something you saw in the Bible?
Personal example.
Personal, okay,
and
yeah.
several teachers that I listen to also say same thing. It will take multiple years, not 1 or 2 years, to see the progress. I am saying this so that you do not get discouraged. It takes time. The needle work, it takes lots of work, right? That's what.
Yeah, I agree, and I see that all the time. There are things that you see and you meditate, and you can pray about it and say, "What does this mean, God?" And then it might be 6 months, it might be a year, it might, all of a sudden, oh, it's revealed to you.
Think about that, Bill, and it's true with all of us. The more time we spend digging out a truth like that, the more important that truth becomes to us, to a point where it can be damaging even, because it becomes it could become a pride issue, but it's more than just pride. It's you spend so much time of your life learning this that it becomes too important to ignore. I'm not saying that right, guys. I don't know what I mean, but the very fact that you have to spend so much time digging that out makes it more important, perhaps, to us than it is to other people hearing it. And this
becomes an idol.
Well, it can, yeah, buddy. It can become an idol in that sense. We have to be. I'm just saying we have to be careful about that kind of thing.
I think Paul mentioned that.
There's no danger of that for me because I'll never spend that much time. But you and Taylor, Bill and Buddy, and you guys, you spend time digging out things like that.
Well, I have to say this, that when I was living back in Missouri, this is an excellent example, and I was retired, and I lived in an area where neighbors had a nice bass pond, and I'd be out there bass fishing in a boat, in the boat out there and catching bass, and thoughts would come into my mind. I'm thinking about biblical scriptures that I've read. I'm not thinking about who won the ball game. I don't even know what's going on in ball games. Some people have all this information about ball games and ball teams, who's their favorite and all that. I have nothing to do with that. But God's word, I'm studying it all the time. And then when I'm doing things that are just pleasurable, maybe even dancing sometimes, I think about the scriptures that talk about dancing in the Bible. So I give that as an example.
Hey, Bill, when you were fishing, did you catch any fish with coins in their mouth?
No, I didn't need it. I just paid my taxes with my check.
Well, you see, having your mind wander like that, it's like a boiling pot or water never boils when you're watching it. I'm not saying it right.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
As long as you're watching that cork sitting there, it never goes down.
By the way, Rebecca just sent me a note, and she wanted to know some more about what I had said about the priest, the priest in the kingdom. And again, I said it's my speculation. Okay, and I'll put it this way. Here's some more of my speculation. Sarah, it talks about Sarah, Abraham's wife, and it says, whose daughters you are if you do well. And it basically calls the women the daughters of Sarah. My personal, and again, speculation, this is Bill Hildebrand speculation, under Jesus Christ, who wears all the crowns, Abraham would be a king, and Sarah would be the high priest. And then all the women are going to be priests. They are the ones, if you look at women in society, most often, especially mothers, and that you'll find that they are intercessors. And I think I mentioned this once before. I've been around a little bit. I have seen a few bar fights where guys are almost getting into a bar fight. And it's usually the girlfriends or the wives that are breaking them up. And I had one thing happen in my own family with my two younger brothers. They wouldn't talk to each other for years. And it was the wives that got them back together finally. They had to do over the farm and whatever. But anyway, so anyway, that's just my speculation that the women are being trained and are naturally better intercessors, which is what a priest is. Rebecca.
Do we believe that when we're spirit beings that we're going to know that one person was a female and the other person was a male? Are we going to know that?
Let me just say what the Church of God has added to Scripture, which we're not supposed to do. When they asked Jesus about the woman that had the 7 husbands, and who's in the resurrection, whose wife she going to be? And he said, in the resurrection, they neither marry or given in marriage. And everybody has jumped to this great mental conclusion that we're sexless. It does not say that.
It does mention 2 angels that were women carrying carrying fire off from something, but it does describe them as being women. So I don't think we're going to be sexless. We may not have sex in that sense of the word. But,
can you give me chapter and verse?
I'll have to look it up, Paul. But it was kind of weird because they had wings that were kind of strange in the description, but they were described as women.
That's the pot that has a lead covering on it.
I think so. Yes. Something like that. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, if you look up the lead covering pot, the pot, and whatever. I remember the scripture you're talking about, Raymond.
Yeah.
But anyway, remember Jesus also said to the 12, I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot receive them at this time. And again, it is written, eye has not seen, ears not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for those that love him. So we know from that God has kept certain things back in his own knowledge, not revealed it.
Sure. Any other patterns that you are seeing from Aaron to Melchizedek. Maybe you can tell that next time, next presentation.
Yeah, it would be good to compare that somehow. Of course, the big comparison is that, like you said here, we don't need the embroidery. We don't need the details of garments like they had in old, because we have direct access through Christ, through Melchizedek, to the Holy of Holies. So
Correct.
none of that's required. So that's a major difference. And yet, that's what I was thinking about when you were talking, is what happened. I mean, the patterns that they used to develop these things were already in existence in heaven, and that's in the Bible. It says that. So that means that these things are copies of things that were in heaven and are being used in heaven somehow. And that's,
You know, you remember, you probably remember Gerald Waterhouse, Raymond.
oh yeah,
From Worldwide.
Everybody forget Gerald Waterhouse. Come on.
3-hour sermon.
Sermons, you know.
But he made an interesting, he used to make these interestingly sarcastic, humorous comments. And he goes, do you think that God decided after Israel that he would have 12 gates to the temple, or did he have 12 gates to the temple and worked it out so there were 12 tribes?
I think he worked it out myself, guys.
He said, yeah, he didn't go, oh, we got to have 12 gates now because there are 12 tribes. No, there were 12 gates and everybody has to go in through one of those gates.
Now, let me ask you a question. Can you have 12 foundations on a pyramid? Wouldn't it almost have to be a square to have 12 foundation periods or pillars?
Well, the bottom is square.
Well, not necessarily if it's a pyramid.
Yeah. Well,
A pyramid's not square at the bottom.
I always thought of it as such.
I didn't think so. That one kind of pyramid that you can have 4 sides to it, the 3 sides going up and the one at the bottom. It's the way I always thought of it.
Oh, I was talking about the bottom layer.
Yeah, the bottom layer, I guess, would have to. No,
would be four corners on the bottom layer.
I don't. Not if it's a pyramid, would it?
And I thought, you know, the squareness. I've always thought of it. Any cross section, if that's what we call it in engineering, any cross section as you go up would always be a square, but it gets a smaller and smaller square as it goes up. That's the way I've always pictured it. I don't know.
Not sure either. Maybe.
So the foundation would be the very bottom. But anyway.
Well, there is a figure of speech, like New Jerusalem has walls, and walls have 12 foundations, which are 12 apostles of the Lamb. And then if you go to Isaiah, it says, her walls are salvation and her gates are praise. So the salvation is through 12 apostles, their teachings, the gospel. That's how I see it, like symbology.
Yeah. I don't know. It gets really deep as you dig in. The more you dig into this stuff, the deeper it gets. You know, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, and it is interesting how all of those physical things, a lot of which Tagore pulled out here, are, I don't know how to say it. It's exciting to see all of the details that God put into the physical things that he was going to allow Israel to have and do. I mean, that's.
I got to tell you guys, Tagore, I thought I was going to be bored. I really did, you know, because of the subject matter. I knew there was going to be a tremendous amount of detail, but you brought that detail to life and how you connected it to things. And so it wasn't boring at all to me. I enjoyed it.
I had the same feeling, because I sometimes go in and out when whoever's speaking, but Yeah, I pretty much stayed around today because that
I
was
noticed that.
a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And by the way, I don't know if you still want to chat or something on something totally different, really. But I was studying today. I'm trying to picture how the very reality of Jesus Christ and God the Father as individual beings, and there's a city, Keilah, I think his name of it is. David, when he was fleeing from Saul, and the Philistines had gone into this city of Judah or of Israel and Keilah, and they were taking all their grain and they were taking their crops. And so David asked he brought in the Urim or whatever, and he said, "Should I go up against the Philistines?" And God said, "Yeah." So he goes up there and he wipes out all the Philistines. And the town, obviously, or the city of Keilah, I think it's Keilah. They're happy and everything. And David's hanging around there and has told Saul that, hey, David's up there in Keilah. And he goes, he's shut into the city. I can get him. And David gets word of it. And so then he says, will the people of Keilah deliver me unto Saul? And Christ says, yes, they will. Like, get out of there. I think, why doesn't Christ go and just do something to Keilah to make them so they won't do that? Or whatever. And I'm trying to picture more of Christ's job. And he apparently did not want to mess with the town of Keilah. So he just tells David, no, they would deliver you up. Get out of there. So I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but
I remember
the very reality of how Christ doesn't want to get involved and get in all of that city right then. So he says,
that's true. Even when he was on earth, right? When he was persecuted by Jews, he avoided going there. He stayed outside in Galilee.
Hang on a second, Paul.